bridesmaid, never a bride. I've been searching for you all my life, waiting around to make things alright. Well, maybe you could stay the night.
Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Puckett, and these are my two amazing dogs. I tell them I love them every single day, but I've never really thought about what that means. For over 30 years of my life, I thought I was incapable of love, and more importantly, incapable of being loved. I chased this emotion all over the country, all the way up to Lake Superior, looking for love. I moved out to Seattle, Washington, to be with a woman for over 3 years. We lived together and told each other we loved one another every day. But eventually ended. And ever since, it begs the question, does love actually end? Or is what we had something entirely different? Maybe I've never loved before. Maybe I've never been loved. And it wasn't just Seattle. Another notable woman in my past I moved all the way out to Southern California for. And we lived together for years and told each other we loved one another as well. But in a very similar situation, that ended as well. I was lucky enough to grow up with two parents who loved each other, and to this day are still together. So I grew up with the idea that love was between two people, regardless of their race or gender or sex. It was romance between two people. So I always searched for someone who accepted me for who I was. And more importantly for me, someone who accepted me for my past. Somebody I could grow old with, and who would be there for me when I needed them the most. But I never found that person. Somebody I could be myself with. Somebody I could be goofy with. But I just never found that person. And after a while, I eventually just gave up and haven't looked for almost 5 full years now. And during those 5 years, I've been convinced there was something wrong with me. I see everyone else my age married and with kids. And then I look back on myself with no prospect and no idea what love even was. But when I started to look deeper into this issue for this video, I realized that I had more love than I've ever had in my entire life. And just how many different forms of love there actually are. So when I set out to make this video, I put on my social media feeds and asked people to DM me on what their idea of love was. I wanted to hear from different people from different walks of life what it meant to them. And I was sure I'd be making this video about romance, about undying love between two people well into their 70s, 80s, and 90 years old. But that's not at all what I got. Almost none of the people who messaged me about what love meant to them actually spoke about romantic love. And furthermore, the majority of people who DM'd me to talk about this at one point or another eventually told me that they loved me. And for the first time in my life, I started thinking of love not just as romantic love, but as compassion and empathy and hope and always being there for one another. And this really lifted my spirits. Because even through 3 years of recovery and everything I went through in addiction, I still thought that I was broken inside for this one simple emotion. Thinking that I was incapable of loving, and more importantly, incapable of being loved. And that's a terrible thing to think about yourself. And I realized how many people I spoke to thought the exact same way. Even if they didn't think of love as simply romantic love, they felt like they were somewhat either incapable of love or didn't have enough of it in their life and were always striving for more. And that's painful. That brought me a lot of strife. To download Tinder and Bumble and swipe aimlessly and just think, well, I'm just gonna get hurt again. I'm never gonna find anybody, so why try? And that's why, as I've spoken about on this channel before for over 5 years now, I've had one date, that date didn't go very well, and I've been basically alone for this entire time. And that's okay with me. It definitely is. I've spoken before, somebody asked in the Ask Mr. Puckett Anything video why I'm not in a relationship, and I went in depth about some of my past relationships with women and how I went through them in my addiction, and I was the person hurting somebody else emotionally. I was the person who was never there for somebody else, and how I didn't want to be that person again. And even though I've changed through all these years, I don't want to hurt anybody again. And that's why I've never allowed myself to become close to a woman.
Why aren't you in a relationship?
Why aren't I in a relationship? Do you want to tell them? Do you want to tell them? You might be surprised to learn that I think it's coming up on 5 years now where I've only had one date, and that one date did not go very well. I haven't, oh God, it's been so long, man. And I did in the past, certainly. I mean, I had long-term, incredible women in my life, and even lived with a handful of them too, all over the country, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, Seattle, these amazing women that towards the end stage of my addiction, I did more and more harm to, I think, emotionally. Now, especially the woman I was with in Seattle, kind of right before I admitted I finally had a problem. I had had a problem for years with drugs and alcohol, for decades, but I hadn't admitted it until it got so bad that I just couldn't avoid it anymore. And I think I did so much harm to her emotionally because I was just the worst person, you know, and it was just, I was the guy on the couch who wouldn't move for weeks at a time. I wasn't helping her pay rent. I wasn't working. I was a negative person. And I mean, there was no abuse or anything like that going on, emotional or otherwise, but it was just, I mean, I don't know how she dealt with me when I was like that. This woman was an absolute saint, and she should have kicked me out so long before she actually did kick me out and I started my homeless journey. But I mean, she's on my 9th step. The 9th step in Alcoholics Anonymous is making amends with the people you've wronged. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to get a hold of her to do that. And I don't think I ever will. She doesn't want to talk to me. And if I was in her spot, I probably wouldn't either, because I was just a zombie, you know, and I refused to do anything. And this went on for over a year that we lived together. And I was just an incredibly negative person. And I don't want to hurt anybody like that again. Yeah, I guess I think that even though I'm in a better place now, that's my experience with relationships. That's my biggest experience, is that I am not the person to get involved with. And even though I know I've changed, and I'm really proud of my change, I guess it's hard to see a relationship working out any different than the way that one did, which may sound silly to people at home, but it's all I know at this point. So. And then you get so far, right? Like I had gone a year without a woman, and then it was like, well, I mean, it's no big deal. I'll focus on Mr. Puckett at the time, and then it just felt like it was never going to happen. It was like I'd go on Tinder and swipe a little bit. You know, I don't go to bars. There's not a great way for somebody in my position to meet people. So it was just, it started as being, well, I don't want to hurt anybody again. And it kind of grew into, well, if it hasn't happened now, it's never going to happen again. And now it's almost 5 years later without romance or even a date. And it just kind of feels like it's never going to happen. So why try? And I know that's such a terrible message to give you, because I'm always talking about doing something new, do something that scares you, push the envelope. But I also have this side of me that is perfectly content in my life. If you saw the last video that I made, A Day in the Life, that what I do all day long, I love to do. And I'm very happy. So in addition to not wanting to hurt somebody again, I'm worried that bringing somebody into this beautiful thing I have with these dogs and these videos and my job would do something negative to me too. So, I mean, it's not a great answer for a wholesome YouTube channel, but it's the answer that I have, and it's the truth, that I just don't want to hurt anybody again. So hopefully the next question I can give you a little bit more wholesome of an answer. So we'll cut this one right now, and we'll check out the next question.
But this project taught me so much more than that. Because when people would tell me that they loved me from far away places, just because they saw me on the internet or they followed my posts or my YouTube videos or whatever it was, I kind of just brushed it off, to be perfectly honest with you. Because when you feel like you're incapable of being loved, you can have 1 million people tell you they love you, and I don't want to say it doesn't mean anything, but you just don't believe it. So I think that's the message that this video turned into today, is that love is not just between two people romantically who want to grow old together. Love has many different forms, not one more important than the next. And when you have somebody in your life that you care for, that you want to see succeed, and you would do anything to help, I think I would now call that love. And how I can say that I love so many of you back now, instead of just hearing it and dismissing it because I think there's something wrong with me. And if you're going through the same thing, I can tell you right now, nobody is incapable of love, and nobody is incapable of being loved, no matter what you've been through, no matter what's on the horizon. And the more love you put out there, if there's anything I've learned through everything I did on Imager and what I've done now through these videos, if there's one thing I've learned, it was that the more positivity you put out there, the more you get back. But through talking to so many of you in this project, I need to change that just a little bit and say that the more love that you put out there, the more love you're going to get back.
In a picture I saw you, I recognize that face. I can't forget you. Where am I? Waiting in the ocean, I got someplace to be. Falling far behind you. Who am I? Could you show me how to get it back to good? 'Cause I don't know how, but I know that I should. I try so hard, I never knew why. Where am I to find?
So maybe I am destined to spend my life without romantic love. But I no longer see that as a bad thing. Love comes in many shapes and in many forms, and it is not just romance. It's the people in your life that you would do anything for. You don't judge their past or their future. You just want to help them. My best friends in the entire world live just down the street from me, and I love them. And now, with my new job and my anxiety getting better and better, I'm free to go make new friends and to love more. In addition to all that, I have all of you who have stuck by my side through everything, who have been there for me with compassion and empathy to support everything I do. And if that's not love, I don't know what is. So I can honestly say today that I love you. Thank you for being here for me. After making this video, I don't feel so alone. In addition to my friends and all of you, I still have the greatest love of all. The love of the most amazing dogs in the world.